Good morning, Rabbi Benarosh, Cantor Epstein, City Councilor Dita Burku, former MNA Lawrence Bergman, and friends. I would like to welcome you all to the 23rd Annual Romanian Holocaust Commemoration. Before we start, I'd like to thank Rabbi Benarosh and the staff at Beth Zeitung for letting us use their space and resources. My co-chair, Adina Weiner, for her continued commitment to making this event happen. And of course, the newest addition to our team, co-chair Romy Phillip, who will be offering some important historical background throughout the ceremony. To Cantor Epstein, a big thanks for offering your services again this year. Thank you to City Councilor Dita Burku for her sponsorship of this event and her continued support. A special thank you to Mrs. Sheva Honig, who, though she is no longer with us, continues to make the brunch reception possible. Finally, we would like to thank the Center for the Study of Jewish History in Romania for allowing us to use the photographs you saw outside from their exhibition, and to Dana Ionescu for connecting us to the center and making the exhibition possible. And of course, we remember the survivor, Ben Younger, who was with us every year at this event until his passing. Last year, we lost the founder of this event, survivor Baruch Cohen, a beautiful and courageous soul. Just recently, his wife Sonia Cohen passed away, almost exactly a year after Baruch. I only knew Sonia for a short time, but in that time I felt her warmth and love, as well as an extraordinary strength and resilience. Baruch and Sonia were a force in this community and touched deeply all those who knew them. This commemoration is dedicated to their memory, as well as to all those of the survivor generation who are no longer with us. It is not only their memory, but their living spirit that inspires us to pass on the message of remembrance and continue the project of Tikkun Olam, repairing the world. I would now ask you to please rise for O Canada. O Canada, terre de nos aïeux, tant franc et saint, de fleurants glorieux, with glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land, glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. You may now be seated. I would just ask everyone at this time to turn off their cell phones so that we can respect the solemnity of the event. Thank you. I would now like to call up Rabbi Yamin Benarosh to say a few words.
Thank you, David, or should I say Cousin David. Very proud of you that you organized this event. Not often do we see young people involved these days, and it's so nice to see so many young people here today to commemorate, to remember. I asked a group of students just this past week, it was a grade 11, a secondary 5 class, how often are you confronted with anti-Semitism? Have you ever been confronted with anti-Semitism? And they started thinking, and not very many of them put up their hands. And I said, come on guys, think a little bit harder, because there is not a day that goes by that I, in my social media feed, in the news, wherever it may be, that I experience some form of anti-Semitism. And I'm sure many of you saw a video that was circulating yesterday in a subway in the United Kingdom of an anti-Semitic act. And when I said that, and I also mentioned, you know, what about at the rally, when you go to the Israel Day rally? And then suddenly it started clicking, and one by one they all started raising their hands. And it's a very scary thing when we think about how much anti-Semitism and how much have we learned from the past. And it is a very, very real threat today. We think about remembering, liskor, yiskor. And there are many ways that we remember about it, but remembering is a very Jewish thing. On Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, we have zichronot. We blow the shofar to remember many different events of the past. The Torah says you have to remember what Amalek did to you. You have to remember what anti-Semites did to you in the past. But there's another type of zachor that I think is very, very important and something that we need to think about. And that is, we say, Zachor et Yom HaShabbat lekodsho. We remember the Shabbat. Lekodsho means to make it holy. When we remember, we make an event, we bring holiness into it. And that is something that is very important. Remembering. It's important to remember. So to you, David, to your committee, to all those of you that are here, we remember. And it is so important to remember. More important than that, to give it to the next generation. The next generation, and as we see, so many of our survivors are no longer with us. And it is that new generation, you, the young people that are here, that it is your duty, your responsibility to make sure that the next generation remembers and that never forgets.
Jewish presence in Romania can be traced as far back as the 2nd century AD. However, Jews were no strangers to anti-Semitism, being taxed excessively, at times even exiled, and forced to wear clothing indicating their ethnicity and status as early as 1650. From there, it only got worse, with the first official blood accusation made against the Jews of Romania in 1710, and anti-Semitism officially being enforced under the premiership of Ioan Brătianu in 1875. We're now going to have Ariela Gutman from grade 7 in Bialik come read a excerpt from a memoir in Romanian.
Eu, la ora 10 dimineața, eram acasă și, pe drum, am văzut primele convoaie cu evrei pe strada Anastasie Panu, piața Halei, Elena Doamna și străduțe învecinate. Ai mei au văzut de la geamurile noastre, etajul 2, aceste convoaie și nu știau despre ce este vorba. La ora 13:30, s-a bătut la ușă și mama, care a deschis, a văzut un capitan cu pistol, jucărie, nichelat în mână, care ne-a ordonat să coborâm, să urcăm în coloana din fața casei și să lăsăm deschise ușile locuinței. Coloana din fața casei era constituită din locuitorii evrei ai acestei străzi. Vecina de la parter, doctorița A.T., mică, grasă, cu mâinile în șolduri, arată cu degetul. Și acolo sunt jidani. Și acolo la etaj sunt jidani. Dintre cei arătați cu degetul de ea, nu s-au mai întors acasă 17. Printre ei, tata și fratele meu.
Between 1940 and 1942, 80 anti-Jewish regulations were passed following the establishment of the National Legionary State. In 1940, the Iron Guard carried out massive anti-Semitic campaign, looting Jewish shops and killing many. At the same time, the Doroi pogrom took place along with a failed coup and a pogrom in Bucharest. All of this before Romania even joined the war with the start of Operation Barbarossa in June of 1941. Ben from Herzliya will be reading an excerpt from Issy Weisfeld's memoirs.
I was hiding in the attic with my father. It was Sunday, the 29th of June, 1941, 11 days before my bar mitzvah. The green shirts, legionnaires, iron guards, were rounding the Jews in their homes and on the streets, bringing them by force to the Prefectura de Policia. In front of my eyes, I saw them bringing Seamus, the 7-year-old man who had prepared me for my bar mitzvah. 4 hooligans and gendarmes were carrying him. They opened up the sewer in front of our house. With a bayonet, they pierced his chest. He was bleeding and they pushed him into the sewer. Sefer Torahs were brought from the synagogues down the road, laid near the sewer, and torched. My father was unable to speak. He could not tell me why it was happening.
Once Romania joined the war, atrocities against the Jews became increasingly popular, starting with the Iași pogrom from June 29th to July 6, 1941, where about 13,000 Jews, or a third of the population of Iași, was killed. From Iași, they went to Chișinău and Odessa, where more Jews were killed and Jewish shops were looted. It was around the same time that Jews were forced to start wearing the yellow star. Adam and Tanya will be reading Death Fugue by Paul Celan.
Black milk of daybreak, we drink you come dusk. We drink you come midday, come morning, come night. We drink you and drink you. We're digging a grave like a hole in the sky. There's sufficient room to lie there. The man of the house plays with vipers. He writes in the Teutonic darkness, your golden hair, Marguerite. He composes by starlight, whistles hounds to stand by, whistles Jews to dig graves, where together they'll lie. He commands us to strike up bright tunes for the dance.
Black milk of daybreak, we drink you come dusk. We drink you come dawn, come midday, come night. We drink you and drink you. The man of the house plays with serpents. He writes as night falls, your golden hair, Marguerite, your ashen hair, Shulamit. We are digging dark graves where there's more room on high. His screams, hey you, dig there, and hey you, sing there. He grabs his black nightstick, his eyes pallid blue, screaming, hey you, dig deeper, you others, sing and dance.
Black milk of daybreak, we drink you come dusk. We drink you come midday, come morning, come night. We drink you and drink you. The man of the house writes, your golden hair, Marguerite, your ashen hair, Shulamit. As he cultivates snakes, he screams, play death more sweetly. Death's the master of Germany. He cries, scrape those dark strings. Soon like black smoke you'll rise to your graves in the skies. There's sufficient room for Jews there.
Black milk of daybreak, we drink you come midnight. We drink you come midday. Death's the master of Germany. We drink you come dusk. We drink you and drink you. He's a master of death, his pale eyes deathly blue. He fires leaden slugs, his aim level and true. He writes as the night falls, your golden hair, Marguerite. He unleashes his hounds, grants us graves in the skies. He plays with his serpents, death's the master of Germany. Your golden hair, Marguerite, your ashen hair, Shulamit.
In 1941, the deportation of all Jews of Bukovina and Bessarabia to Transnistria was ordered, between 150,000 and 250,000 Ukrainian and Romanian Jews were deported to Transnistria, where the majority of them were executed or died from other causes in the ghettos and concentration camps of the Governorate. The deportation process involved mass killings before deporting the Jews, and unfortunately, many of them perished along the long train rides before even reaching the camps in Transnistria.
I would now like to call upon my co-chair, Adina Weiner, to speak about Romanian Holocaust education.
Hi everyone, my name is Adina Weiner, and I moved here from Romania 4 years ago. Although I was born in Arad, Romania, and I lived in Bucharest for most of my life, I never knew much about Romanian involvement in the Holocaust. Shortly after I moved to Montreal, I was blessed to meet beautiful people and get involved in the Holocaust education and remembers. Through my friend David, who I thank for connecting me to this cause and journey of learning, I was able to learn a little bit about the history of the Jew in Romania. Before the war, Romania had 800,000 Jews. It was one of the largest Jewish community in Europe. Today it's a fraction of its original size, at only 10,000 Jewish people, and most of the community is elderly. Romania is a country rich in Jewish heritage. The first Jewish arrived as part of the Romanian legions, Legion Judaica, that invaded Dacia in 100 AD. During the 15th and 16th century, Polish Jewish merchants set up storehouses, trading posts, and eventually permanent settlements. During the region's domination by the Turk, the Romanian Jewish community evolved into a prosperous middle class. Today, there are points reminders of Romanian Jewish heritage and roots. The country is unique in Europe and Central Europe for its core of well-maintained synagogues, nearly 100 of which half of are still used for worship, and more than 800 cemeteries scattered throughout Romania. Decades of communist rules in Romania lead to a lack of education on the subject, and that has largely continued to these days. A disturbing event occurred at the beginning of this year in Târgu Mureș, a north-central city in Romania. Vandals badly damaged 73 gravestones in the northeastern town of Husi, and a surge in anti-Semitic attack across Europe. It's a very disturbing event, but it's nothing surprising. It showed that anti-Semitism is alive. It doesn't matter who did it, said Maximilian Marco Katz, founding director of the Center of Monitoring and Combating Anti-Semitism in Romania. The real anti-Semitism is ignorance, says Vasile Dub, as the hand-half of elderly worshippers feels out of the synagogue at Târgu Mureș. Romania is not alone in witnessing anti-Semitic attacks. France reported 74% rise in violence against Jews last year, while German police recorded a 60% rise. In recent months, the UK's opposition Labour Party has faced repeated accusations of anti-Semitism. Although anti-Semitism is certainly present in today's Romania, there is still signs that the mentality there is slowly changing. At the beginning of this year, I was visiting my family in Romania I spent a little bit more time with my 40 years old niece, who was preparing herself for a national competition on the subject of Holocaust. I was very happy and content to discover that finally the subject of Holocaust was included in the primary school program. I was a little bit concerned about how I'm going to explain to her and how I'm gonna explain this subject. It's a very difficult subject. It turns out that she was very curious and interested in learning more. It was encouraging to me that students were given an opportunity to learn at school and also outside the classroom. This opportunity did not exist in my generation. While there is still a lot of work to be done in educating people on the Holocaust and increasing awarenesses, examples like this can give us hope that knowledge can win over ignorance. Thank you very much.
So here's a brief account of the Bucharest Kristallnacht. And it's by survivor Baruch Cohen, the founder of this commemoration. He was there. I was 20 years old at the time of the Bucharest Kristallnacht, which began on January 21st, 1941. I was there. I am a witness. For a period of more than 72 hours, the Jewish districts in Bucharest were at the mercy of the masses. During this time, thousands of Jews were hauled out of their homes, arrested in the street, and even in houses of prayer, synagogues. For example, the Malbim synagogue, which was occupied and viciously converted into a torture chamber. The Jewish districts in Bucharest were left for 3 days and nights to suffer at the hands of the vilest and most barbaric fascist elements. The aggressors had been educated, incited, and trained for years by the nationalistic hooligan press for the great moment, the slaughter of the Jews. I will now read out some of the names of the victims of the Bucharest Kristallnacht. They left this world in one of the most unjust ways imaginable, but through remembrance and even through the pain of loss, there is a drive that rises up, the drive to fight injustice and cruelty and bigotry, and the parallel drive to cultivate empathy, respect, and tolerance. We remember Sigmund Collin, Isidore Goldstein, Sami Roeder, Ida Bronstein, Cornelius Solomon, Avram Schein, Mayor Marcus, Leon Rosenthal, Moise Fringheru, Oscar Andre, François Heller, Marcel Bank, Rodriguez Brickman, Josef Gutman, Herman Morgenstern, Sully Morgenstern, Leon Blimes, Janku Aaron, Boris Branover, Josef Weissman, Mois Mariasis, Dober Alexandru, Lazar Berthal, Professor Frederick Krantz was initially going to be here to say a few words about Baruch Cohen. Unfortunately, he could not make it. I do have some of the words that he had written for him, a kind of eulogy that he had written for him last year, and I think it only appropriate to recall some of those words because Baruch is the reason that we're sitting in this room. He had a vision, and this is the manifestation of that vision. And each person here who is touched by that vision, however many there are in this room, if even one is truly touched by that vision, I know that that would bring tears to Baruch's eyes. So I'm going to say just a few words about him. In Frederick Krantz's words, Baruch Cohen, my dear colleague and friend, passed away on September 26, 2018, a few weeks before his 99th birthday. His life spanned the last 100 years of Western and world crises, tragedy, and triumph. He was born in Romania just after the end of World War I, living through the First Depression, then the rise of Hitler and of Romanian fascism, surviving World War II and the Holocaust in and around Bucharest, and the Transnistrian killing fields, and then coming under communist rule. Baruch escaped with his dear wife Sonia and beloved daughter Monica, Zichronah Livracha, to Israel just after the Jewish state was miraculously reborn. Baruch lived a long and difficult and yet also courageous, fulfilling, and useful life, one of love and support to family, including his devoted son-in-law Lawrence Bergman and grandsons Mark and Stuart and their families, and of service to friends, the survivor community, Israel, the Jewish people, and his country and society generally. And all who knew him respected, indeed loved him, and he in turn responded with integrity, caring, and love, and especially to students and the young. He had witnessed and survived the greatest horrors of our time and knew what human degradation has wrought. Yet somehow he retained a deep respect for what is truly human and great hope for the future of the Jewish people and of mankind. We're now going to read the passing of the legacy. So this is a text that we read every year. It's a promise by the generations, the consecutive generations of first the survivor generation, then the children of survivor generation, then the grandchildren, which can now be extended to great-grandchildren, of course. It's an affirmation of keeping the memory of the survivors alive, but also doing proactively things to make this world better, to eliminate bigotry, anti-Semitism. So it's powerful, and I'm going to read the first segment on behalf of the survivors. We, the survivors, entrust the legacy of the Holocaust to you, the second generation, and thereafter to all generations. Remember the racial prejudice and discrimination which led you to the Holocaust. By not forgetting, you will pay tribute to those who were murdered. By not forgetting, you will ensure for those who live and those who are yet to be born, and that we intend never to allow such cruelty and horror to happen again. I would now like to call upon City Councilor Dita Burku to read the second generation promise.
Thank you, David. I think I'm going to read it. I just want to say thank you to you, because every year you put your heart and soul into this. You invest a lot of energy. All the young people who are reading, you're doing a fantastic job. You're really, you know, like you say, you're really making Baruch's vision come to life, and that's the most important thing. And so On behalf of everyone here, I really want to thank both of you, the two co-chairs, and all the young people who have dedicated your time and effort. You know, on voit l'énergie que vous avez investie, et c'est très, très, très apprécié. Et mon père était dans les wagons en juin 1941. He was in the trains in 1941, so it's very personal, and there's a lot of people in this room who have family who also went through it. So you're touching us deeply. Thank you very much. Second generation, through our parents' memories, we are linked, we accept and dedicate our promise to you who suffered and survived, and equally to those who perished. In honor of the 6 million, we promise to keep the sacred memory alive from generation to generation. And the third generation too? You have a young person here? Thank you.
Thank you, Dita. I now call upon Ariella Gutman to read the third generation text.
We promise to remember, to preserve the Jewish spirit that could not be destroyed, and to teach our children our obligation to recall the lessons of the Holocaust. Never shall we accept intolerance in our societies around the world again. We pledge ourselves to the memory of all those who suffered and to the unity of the Jewish people.
Thank you, Ariella. So we have another tradition towards the end of the ceremony where we light a memorial candle. Baruch Cohen himself used to light this candle. His wife Sonia as well in the past. And because they're no longer with us, I'm going to ask former MNA Lawrence Bergman, who is Baruch Cohen's son-in-law, to come light. Is he stepped out? Oh, no, I see you now. So anyhow, I think that, you know, again, we have to see these symbols as sort of commemorative, memorializing, honoring the memory of the victims, but also a symbol of hope. We always need to see both sides happening at once. So let's, please, yeah.
Dear Rabbi, dear Chazan, distinguished guests, on behalf of the family of the late Baruch and late Sonia Cohen, I want to thank you very much for dedicating this commemoration in their memory. I had the privilege to marry into the family at the end of the year 1970, and I got a tremendous education from Baruch as we went along. And the one thing that he always told me was, remember Zachar, remember, don't let go. Don't let go of Judaism, of the great accomplishments of the Jewish community and of our Torah and what can be done in the future. I sat at Sonia's bedside for 3 months before she passed away on October 20th. And two things I wanted to tell you about those days. Number one, I addressed myself to the young people here. When a doctor or a nurse would come in, and you could see that they were quite young, maybe a first-year doctor, first-year surgeon, she would turn to me, where other people might turn and say, could you see if maybe you can get a more experienced doctor to come and take a look? And she knew how serious the situation was. And she would always turn to me and say, how nice, young people, how they're educated, and they're devoting their life to medicine. That's so nice. I'm so happy and privileged to be treated by young people. And the second thing, notwithstanding the gravity of those 9 weeks in the hospital, especially in the last few weeks when we knew, and she knew, how difficult the situation was. She wasn't anxious to receive visitors, but when I told her there was a rabbi who would like to come and see her, a friend of hers, a friend of the family, this rabbi came on 2 occasions, and it was basically her privilege to say, look, let him come in for 2 seconds, say hello to me, I'm too tired. But the first time the rabbi came in, he came in with a shofar, and he says, can I blow the shofar? Her eyes lit up. This was the greatest privilege that she could have, to hear the shofar. And a few days before her passing, the same rabbi came in with the lulav and esrog, and he gave it to her, and he told her how it should be, and she understood, of course, exactly what she had to do with it, and she shook the lulav. I mention this to all of us because, notwithstanding the gravity of the situation, she did not let go of her Judaism, of her faith in Hashem, no matter what the situation was. And knowing what was happening, her faith in Hashem was undiminished, and it's a great lesson for all of us. Finally, I'm not sure if you know, but in their modest apartment on Côte d'Ivoire, one room was basically a library, which contained about 800 books. The most detailed books on the Holocaust, on Judaism, Jewish law, Simcha, and the family would like to announce that in memory of Sonia and Borach, we have donated the entire library to the Jewish Public Library. And that transfer of books was just done this past Thursday in such a manner that the Jewish Public Library will now put those books in the library in the places where they belong. The person who came to see the library when we offered the books to the library was astounded. He says, of course, I'm not surprised knowing Bora Cohn and Sonia Cohn. And the books will now be in the Jewish Public Library for all of us to consult from time to time. Thank you very much.
I would now like to call upon the newest member of the committee, Romy Phillip, co-chair, to deliver some concluding remarks.
When working to help organize this event, a lot of people I spoke to were apprehensive. Some of them asked why we were having a Romanian Holocaust commemoration. Some even asked why we still need commemorations at all. For the longest time, my response boiled down to the fact that my family, like so many others, was completely destroyed by the war. I would tell people that I grew up in a family full of Holocaust survivors, and I was lucky enough to have all of their stories readily available to me should I so much as ask to hear them again. However, many people didn't have the same upbringing as me. They learned about the Holocaust in history classes or through movies like The Boy in the Striped Pajamas, The Pianist, or Sophie's Choice. But without experiencing the effects of the war firsthand, there is no way to really understand how horrible it was. So I started asking myself, why is it that we still remember? Do we only remember so that another Holocaust doesn't happen? Do we remember for the sake of those who died? Or do we remember for the sake of generations to come? I started looking back at Jewish history, and I realized that there was never a group of people quite as persecuted as the Jews. A group of people who, despite every challenge, managed to survive and come together once more and live. Between our time as slaves in Egypt, the Spanish Inquisition, all the pogroms across Europe, and alas, the Holocaust, it is a wonder that there are still any Jews left at all. However, I also came to notice that all of these events were passed down through generations. The pain of our ancestors told through stories at basically every holiday. We don't just read these stories and remember what happened for the sake of remembering. We don't just read these stories. We keep them alive in hopes of learning from them, learning the potentials of human cruelty, and by doing so, not only honoring the victims, but also recognizing what is wrong with the world and hopefully realizing how to fix it. My late great-great-aunt once told me that upon arriving to Canada, she was asked, "What are you?" And she replied, "I am Hungarian." To which she said, "No, but what are you?" And she was forced to reply that she is a Jew. She told me that the world would never let her forget that she was a Jew before anything else. The point of remembering is making sure that that isn't the world we live in anymore. Building a better world is the point of remembering, for in the darkest of moments, there is always a kernel of light. By examining the worst humanity